This is the most important round of the Premier League season so far. We've got some absolute massive games at both ends of the Premier League, and we are going to unpack some of those here today. If you are excited, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and get your thoughts in the comments below on the results that we're going to go through today. And there's only one game that we can start with. This week is Arsenal and Newcastle. What a game this is going to be, morning our time here in Australia. First versus third. There's lots to play for. Two very different contrasting styles. The big talking point in this game is going to be, can Newcastle handle the front four of Nketiah, Martinelli, Odegaard and Saka? They have been absolutely phenomenal so far this season for Arsenal. The re-emergence of Granit Xhaka, we've spoken about him on the channel a few times already. The defence for Arsenal as well, the Ben White combinations with, Kieran Tierney, Saliba, Gabriel, Ramsdale. Like, this Arsenal team looks absolutely ready to continue to push for the title. But also there's the Newcastle on the other hand, who under Eddie Howe have just been absolutely fantastic. You've got Miguel Almiron going up on that right-hand side against Kieran Tierney. And then you've got potentially Callum Wilson coming back into the squad, Chris Wood up front. There's just ways that this Newcastle team find ways to get results. Joe Linton being, just an absolute bull in that midfield. And then the defence of Newcastle being the best in the league at the moment. There's obviously the Kieran Trippier effect that Newcastle have as well. But I don't see this game being as free-flowing as both sides have been this year. I think they're both going to recognise what's going to happen and the importance of this game for both of their seasons. Obviously for Arsenal to maintain the 7-point gap they've got on Manchester City, or to extend that gap, I should say, but also for Newcastle to sort of be able to separate themselves from Manchester United and the chasing pack in fourth position. So it's going to make for interesting viewing. I think Newcastle probably have a bit more of the obligation to need to go and attack this game more so than Arsenal. I think Arsenal are more than content with having the ball and being able to knock it around, and they've shown that they can go one goal behind like they did against West Ham and be able to find goals to get over the line, especially at home at the Emirates. So for that, I've got a 2-1 win for Arsenal. It definitely wouldn't surprise me though if Kieran Trippier is involved in those attacking positions as well and gets a return, whether that's a goal, whether it's an assist. I can see probably a free kick finally going in for Kieran Trippier. I think his only one this year's been against Manchester City. So I do see Arsenal, though, running away with a 2-1 victory at home and really cementing a title challenge going into game week 20. I'll quickly touch on the Liverpool game. I'm recording this after the fact. So Liverpool, very, very disappointing this morning. Lost 3-1 to Brentford. Just didn't look like the Liverpool that we know. Coming off 4 wins, it was very frustrating just to see how poorly defensively we've been. I'm not going to talk too much about this game. Brentford did a very great job in capitalising on our defensive issues really in the game, and I'll leave it at that because I don't think there's much more to say. We didn't really create a whole lot. Second half seemed a bit better. We got the 1 goal back through Oxlade-Chamberlain, but still just couldn't find a way to break down Brentford, which was disappointing. So we're going to go down the other end of the table and we're going to go and talk about Leeds and West Ham. This game is massive for different reasons. Newcastle and Arsenal are talking about for a title push, but we've got West Ham and Leeds who are right down towards the bottom. David Moyes is in some serious trouble. Scamacca's apparently not going to play as well. He's picked up a knock. And West Ham just look an absolute shell of the team that they were 12 months ago when they were dominating in the Premier League and playing in Europe, European football and making semi-finals of the Europa League. This game is huge. I think the loser of this game is going to be under some real scrutiny. I think Leeds have shown a little bit more this season than West Ham have, to be perfectly honest. They've been able to grind out a couple of results and look okay and be good in an attacking sense like they have been since they've been in the Premier League. But I just think the loser of this game is going to really suffer. If it's West Ham, I think David Moyes' time's probably up, unfortunately, for all the good work that he's done, but he's clearly not getting the best out of this squad. And it's been frustrating that they've copped some injuries. There's been periods of no Antonio and no Scamacca, so the goals have not been there for West Ham. But I've got this game penned in as a 1-1 draw. I think both teams definitely score because their defences aren't fantastic, but if anyone's going to win this game, I see it probably being Leeds in a shootout. So that's where I see this game going. It's the definition of a 6-pointer in January. You don't really want to be in that position. The last big game I want to touch on is happening later in the round, and it is Chelsea versus Manchester City. Again, this is a big game for different reasons. City coming off of drawing 1-1 with Everton. Arsenal are playing before them, so they'll know what the situation is coming out of that game. And if Arsenal do win, and they're going to be 10 points clear, City need to win this game. Chelsea have been very up and down under Graham Potter. They've been hard to beat, but they also haven't won lots of games. So there's obviously been a lot of draws in that run of fixtures for Chelsea. They're coming off that draw. I think it was against Nottingham Forest as well. I see Man City, though, coming back into form. I think Cancelo just makes his way straight back into the starting 11. He's had a couple games now off the bench. He had one game off the bench and he didn't come on at all at the weekend. I think he just walked straight back into the team because he's just a quality footballer in general that they need on the pitch, and they're a better team when they do have João Cancelo. Do I think Phil Foden starts? I don't know. I think he's definitely in their best 11, but something has happened because I think it's 5 out of the last 6 league games I've played, he's been on the bench. So something definitely has happened between Phil Foden and Pep Guardiola because he is their best. I think him and Haaland are really, and De Bruyne are the top 3 players in that team. And for him to be on the bench for Jack Grealish, who he was starting ahead of in the World Cup, sort of shows that something's gone on, I think, between Pep and Foden. On the Chelsea side of things, this could be a game that suits Chelsea because they can sit in a little bit deeper and go on the break. Now, it would have been better if they did have Reece James available. He would have definitely helped the situation and trying to counter-attack. I think Azpi's going to have to fill in that right back role. Hopefully that allows Cucurella to maybe go down the left-hand side. I think Mount, Havertz are going to be very, very important in this game. When they do go on the break, they're going to have to take their chances. I'm not sure. I think Raheem Sterling obviously going to be playing against his former club. So there's a bit happening from an attacking perspective, and it'll be interesting to see if Enzo Fernandez is in the crowd for this one as well, as his impending transfer to Chelsea seems to be coming to a close. So I do have City winning this one 2-1. I think Erling Haaland's just going to be too much for the Chelsea defence to really handle, and then obviously having De Bruyne and those other players buzzing around, whether it's Mahrez, Grealish, Foden, Julian Alvarez might make an appearance as well. I think just that attacking quality is going to be too much for Chelsea to handle. And I've got a few other results here. So we've got Everton and Brighton. I've got Brighton winning that one 2-0. Brighton, although losing 4-2 to Arsenal, I think they will get the job done. Everton coming off their 1-1 draw against Man City. I just think that's a bit of an anomaly. I really don't rate Everton at the moment. Manchester United versus Bournemouth. I've got Man U winning 2-0. I think Rashford will return back to the starting 11, and the combination of him and Martial will be too much for them to deal with. We've got a Midlands derby, Villa and Wolves. I've got Villa winning this one 2-1. I might even rescind that to 2-0 because Wolves really do struggle to score goals. So we'll go Villa 2-0. Unai Emery, I think he's the first manager in the Premier League history for Aston Villa to win their first 2 away games as a manager, which is massive, and it shows the impact that he's had straight away on that team, being able to play a bit more defensively solid football. Then we've got Fulham and Chelsea as well. So that's going to be the last game of this match day, which is actually going to happen next Friday. So there's a bit of time between these games because at the weekend there's FA Cup, and I've got Chelsea winning this one 2-1, but I don't know how I feel about that, predicting it this early, because Fulham have looked in fantastic form. Speaking of Fulham, they play Leicester in this batch of games, and I've got them winning 3-1. I think Alexander Mitrovic is going to be the difference in this game. We saw Leicester against Liverpool look really good in patches, but then also defensively look really shaky, and Liverpool didn't take their chances against Leicester in that one in particular. So I think they're going to struggle to contain the Pereira and Mitrovic combination going forward. We've got Southampton versus Nottingham Forest. I've actually got Southampton winning this one 1-0. That's just one game. This is the definition of a 6-pointer. This is where you don't want to drop points. Southampton really need a win. I think at home they'll be able to muster something up. And the last game I've got here for the round is Crystal Palace and Spurs. Again, 2 very up and down teams. We've seen the best and the worst of Spurs really in recent times. I think Spurs really need to move on from Antonio Conte. It's not working. The system's not working. The players don't seem to be taking too much of it on board. where they're just really struggling. Obviously, they were 2-0 up against Brentford and threw that away, and then they lost to Aston Villa at Villa Park. Crystal Palace, their first game, I can't remember who it was against, but they did strike. They lost pretty convincingly, but got a nice win at the weekend. I've got this down as a 2-2 draw. Two teams that do like to push forward, but also have struggled to defend. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to see what you think, and then we can maybe tally up what we get. Make sure you subscribe for more football content, and I'll see you guys very shortly for some more from Premier League football content.